but specific for this question, we have a special program focusing on youth in agribusiness, and that program is called Enable Youth. This is a program that's been running for the last 6 years or so, and it's basically, the objective is to empower youth along the entire agricultural value chain, from production, processing, marketing, both upstream and downstream, to get youth into the agribusiness sector. The program focuses on 3 key aspects, which is addressing many of the issues that came up in the previous discussion. And by the way, the youth in the previous section, it was really great to listen to you, and I'm glad that they had more time than we're having, because they are the ones who are actually taking that risk and plunging into the agriculture sector. So the Enable Youth program focuses on 3 key areas. One is on policy. So we look at policies, how can we improve policies within a particular country to provide decent employment, decent business opportunities for youth. And one of the key areas of policy is on access to land. That's a very critical area. Later on, I might expand a bit more on that. The second aspect of this program is on youth incubation, providing critical training for the youth, mostly 5 to 6 months, through an incubation, through practical aspects on the value chain that they'd like to participate in. So, for example, if you want to go into fish pond farming, where do you get the liners? What kind of liners do you use? How often? What is the stocking rate? Where do you get this? The fish. The fishlings. Where do you get the feed? These are very practical aspects that many of us who are policymakers, we assume that these things, they're there. If I want fingerlings, I can get them. But no, you have to plan ahead of time. You have to know that within 6 months, I'll need so much. So this is the kind of practical agronomic aspects that for the youth to go through that training. But in addition to that, we also provide business training as well. So within that incubation period, they get practical aspects of obviously we talk about the business plan, but we talk about human resources, income statements, all those aspects that are critical for you to run your business. And the third key component is on access to finance. Finance came up as a key challenge for so many of the speakers before. So the Enable Youth usually has a component on access to finance, so that we can provide different types of financing instruments depending on where the youth enterprise is, whether it's early stage, others are more mature, they receive specific type of financing. And the financing is not only credit, because credit, the resources that would be delivering the country are really not enough to cover everything. But we also provide guarantees as well, credit guarantees, and also technical assistance. So that is one of the key program that we have at the bank to address youth unemployment. So just a bit of background on that. So far, for the last 6 years or so, we have invested Enable Youth programs in about 16 countries on the continent, with investments of over about 490 million US dollars. And with that, the direct youth beneficiaries are about 40,000 for those programs, with direct jobs expected to be about 63,000. So that is one of the programs. There are a few others, but I know we're running out, running out of time. But let me mention just one. Another program which is a part of the Enable Youth is what we call the Agri pitch competition. So we have a pitching competition. Actually, this is a program that came as an afterthought after Enable Youth. But in my view, it has brought much more visibility to youth than even the big investment projects that we have in the country. It's a smaller program in terms of investment, but really it provides, it's a continental annual pitching competition where we have over thousands who apply, but we select a few, about 25, who participate in a boot camp where they receive training over 2 weeks on business models, on marketing, on pitching, and at the end of that, they'll actually pitch to a group of judges and investors that we have invited. So it's a program that, in terms of, I think we get much more for value for money on this program to promoting youth in agriculture. We have had 5 cohorts. About 120 youth have gone through that program. So they've received training. We've linked them up to some of the, once they go through the pitching competition, they receive a bit of seed money, but it's not enough. But I think that what they're exposed to and what they learn helps them to move to other sources of financing. So far, for example, from the 2020 cohort, 4 of the 6 winners have gone on to raise a combined amount of about 1.5 million. Actually, one of the businesses has gone on to raise, I think, in seed capital, 3 million in 2021 and 4.2 million in 2022. So a small program like that, I think, has a lot of returns. One last program, maybe I mentioned so that I don't skip it, to address the issue of de-risking youth. The young gentleman from Zimbabwe talked a lot about that. Is the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. This is a new instrument that, a program that the bank is establishing now in a number of countries. So the key objective really is to address market failures and de-risk the youth segment, as an asset class. And basically what it does, it provides 3 also elements. One is it provides an investment fund, which can be debt or equity. It also, the second instrument is on credit guarantee, and the third one was on technical assistance. So this is a very new product. We have one that has been approved for Liberia, and I know that we have a project in Tanzania with a BBT. I'm sure the Deputy PS here knows about that. And we're discussing whether that will be part of this BBT project, but that's under discussion. So
thank you so much, Edson, for programs that you have highlighted for us. And now that you mentioned the Deputy PS, we go right back to him. We have already heard that it's not about a lack of policies, that the policies are there. So for the Tanzania case, are you able to highlight, it could be 1 or 2 policies that are putting youth ahead in terms of agri-food systems? And while you tackle that, also, you may highlight any other ag innovations that are already making or putting youth at the forefront of the agriculture value chain. Yeah.
Thank you. When it comes to policies, I'll just reiterate what has been said by Honorable Ambassador. The policies are so many, the more than 10 policies, which all of them, of course, in one way or the other, just promote youth engagements in the agriculture and other sectors. The issue is, how do we translate these policies into implementations? And this is what has been done by the Ministry of Agriculture. To start with, we have a program called the BBT, a Build a Better Tomorrow programs. This is a translation of these policies into implementations. So what are we doing with these other programs? As you can recall what has been said by William from Zimbabwe. First of all, we made an analysis to see what are the problems, what are the challenges these youth are facing. So one of the challenges, like you said, the issue of land, access to land. We as a Tanzania, we say, okay, most of these youth, they cannot access to land. What we'll do now, we as a government, we are acquiring land. We are paying compensation for that land. And we are providing 10 acres for each youth with our title deeds. That's the free of charge. He's paying nothing for that land. Why we are doing that? Of course, we believe that, of course, if you can have a land, then, of course, we'll be able to have a guarantee for him to cultivate, but also to use that as an access as a collateral. But that's the first. But also, we said the second thing also, apart from land, these youth also, they need infrastructures, irrigation infrastructures and mechanizations. And most of them, they don't have money to do that. Possibly they just come from universities. So what we do, we also provide, we ensure that of every 10 acres of land that has been provided to this youth, it will be supplied with all infrastructures, including irrigation infrastructures, the cost of developing that land, the cost of seeds, the cost of other inputs, That will be the government cost, the initial cost of the government. And the program is going to take 8 years. And of course, we aim at achieving 250,000 youth for those 8 years. But also, we plan to make sure that, of course, at the end of these 8 years, we create 12, because we have more than 12 villages in the country. So we want each village to have one billionaire youth in the agriculture sector, for them to be used as a model. We've said, we have Zuchu, we have Diamonds. These are the icon now because they have money. So we need to create, in agriculture, to have such youth, also others can see and believe it, of course. If you just engage in agriculture, then of course you can succeed. But also in terms of policy, we ensure that, of course, we also de-risk them. Because if you go to most of the financial institutions, they're supposed to have a collateral. So we say, no, we as a government, this youth will be financed by this financial institution just by the concept. If they can have a good concept, then the concept can be financed without having a collateral. All of this is to ensure that, of course, we promote youth engagement. But also we ensure, of course, to just benefit of the economies of scales, we just develop block farms. We are not providing that land individually. We are just providing a blocks. So within that block farms, it will be easier now for them to access all those services. But we know one of the issues is also access to market. They can produce. Where do they sell? So what we ensure, of course, in all of these block farms where we just provide 10 acres for this youth, there must be an off-taker who will be responsible to off-take whatever has been produced by those kids. But also we just go further to ensure, of course, on all those farmers, we also build houses. They have to stay there. Initially, they don't have money. Where do they stay? So we also build houses to ensure, of course, all the infrastructures are there for the youth really to be able to engage fully in agriculture. So our ambition is to ensure that, of course, when we reach 2030, how agriculture is perceived by youth in the country, it will be very different, because we'll have an icon youth, of course, which can testify that being in the agriculture sector, of course, you can just be rich. Maybe I'll just have to end up here for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, a round of applause for him. Those are good innovations. Definitely Tanzania is showing leadership in terms of the implementation and just creating opportunities for youth to take advantage of the policies that exist. And as Aileen had mentioned earlier, that she has given us the innovation of beans, I think the threshers, that is reducing both wastage and also drudgery in terms of the young women and men who are taking advantage of that innovation. So Aileen, do you have any other innovations that you could highlight, probably at whatever point of the agri-food system, whether it's the post-harvest or at the production stage?
Yeah, definitely. But before I start, I think I might be changing my nationality in a couple of weeks. Am I welcome in Tanzania? You see, the truth is, as a child, you aspire to not just impress your parents, but actually show the community that they can do better. So if they're going to be billionaires in Tanzania, I definitely want to be one of them. Huh? Yeah, so talking a little bit about some of the technologies we have within the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance is what we call the Bean Business Corridor. So basically, what is the Bean Business Corridor? The Bean Business Corridor is basically a platform, or you can say space, where you bring in all the agricultural value chain actors in one place. It's easy to say you want to link people, but the linking happens when people have the opportunity to say what they need, and you have somebody who says, I have something to offer. So the Bean Business Platform, it's a combination of farmers, those who are providing agro services, financial institutions, because like the panel before me spoke, for you to give me money, you need to know what I need. I don't want money if what I want is an equipment. Sometimes we've had cases where farmers say, I want 500,000 US dollars, but we have somebody who is willing to give the farmer 3 million. And that's not what the farmer needs. So then we have financial institutions as well. And you also have those who provide other services. For example, if I have my beans and I want to parcel it and sell, I need someone to provide me with that. So the Bean Business Platform is basically having all these stakeholders in one place and having a discussion. And like it was said before also, the person that should really be leading this should be what you call the aggregator. Because what drives the Bean Business Platform is the demand for that product. If there's a demand for the product, then everybody sees that if I produce that product, I would have the money, then that product is going to be produced. But you need to understand before the product gets produced, what quantities are needed. And that goes back even to the seed you would need to provide to the farmer who would produce the grain before the aggregator aggregates the grain. It has to do also with logistics. I mean, if you're getting beans, for example, I'm all about beans. So if you're sitting here, your rice, cereal, just think about that crop in your mind as well. If you're actually getting beans, the most important thing is you want to think of the logistics. So when farmers get it from the field, how do they maintain the quality? So the aggregator gets the quality that is demanded. So this exporter who needs the beans has the quantity that is demanded. So the men and the women even in the households have the quality that is demanded. And somebody asked a question about nutrition. We have high on beans. Beans that has high on and high zinc. I don't want to go into what zinc and iron does. I think we have a fair idea, so I don't take a lot of time. But if you have all these people in one place, and then those driving it is really the private sector partners, not the government driving it. Because with the government, the idea always is, if the money is finished, we can come for more. But the private sector is looking for how to make that sustainable. And when you have everyone involved in it and agreeing that this is what we want to do, you have a buy-in. So people own it. And then basically the NGOs only come into support when there's a need for that. But if not so, it's something that is owned by the people, it's something that the people need, and it's something the people want to do. I think that's important. But definitely, on the other side as well, is for everything that you're doing, you need support. It's like saying when you look at youth transition, you have a child in the house, you hold the hand of the child. Teaching the child what to do, of course, if the child goes to school, that's what the teachers teach them, that's what the community teaches them. But there's the hand holding that's important to get them to the level where they can actually do it on their own. And sometimes what is missing, even as we do within the Bean Business Corridors, we're realizing, is how to provide that sustained support to a point where they can actually do it on their own. And how do we make sure that support is consistent? And how do we make sure that support cuts across the value chain? I think probably William was the one who said it, it's not just focusing on one area, but how do you look at that across? But also what is important is understanding for these different farmers and even for the different value chain actors, there are certain areas they're interested in. So how do you harness those areas to make sure that they provide the support where they have the strength and they are supported where they have the weaknesses? Thank you.
Thank you, Aileen. Am I changing my nationality as well? Your Excellency. Anyway, so we have heard from the government, we have heard from our financial institution and research. So the key question for us all here is, so what are the key opportunities for multi-stakeholder collaboration? And what are these opportunities for investments and policy actions that will probably respond to the call that we have in this year's AGRF, because we are all here as we identify with the theme of recover, regenerate, and act, so that we can build more resilient food systems with youth and women at the center. So, Deputy PS, what are these opportunities that you see for us? Mic is off.
There is a number of opportunities. First of all, there is population growth. That is an opportunity. It's population growth globally, population growth in Africa, population growth in individual countries, including my country. Because we are experiencing population growth, the demand for food will definitely keep on increasing as well. If the demand of food keep on increasing, then how do we now turn that into opportunity for us to capitalize on that? So we have two major variables to take care of, or elements. First is, because you're talking of the youth, the political will. Government in different countries, they need to have a political will to ensure, of course, first of all, the agriculture is growing, but comprehensively, it also supports the economy of the country in terms of provision of employment, even to the youth. We as a country, we've demonstrated that. If you look into Tanzania, the budget allocation for the agriculture sector has increased tremendously. We are talking of, for the last 2 years, 300 million plus T shillings. Now we are talking nearly trillion T shillings. So we need to have a political will. But the political will of the government itself is not enough. We need also to have public-private private sector involvement, PPP. The private sector should just come in. And also we can demonstrate that we as the government, we've been collaborating with a number of projects, including the BBT, Build a Better Tomorrow programs, where we have a number of private sector that are engaging in. But all of these need to be informed by research. So we need to ensure that, of course, we have enough researchers and they're doing research on these areas to analyze what are the issues, what are the bottlenecks, and what are the solutions. Because while you're developing these solutions, it's also you're developing opportunities. So if you just go in Tanzania, you can see, of course, one of the areas which are a priority also is an area of research in the Ministry of Agriculture. So, of course, we're just promoting research so as to be able to capitalize on research and to make a lot of development. This includes seed multiplications, including fertilizer, and so on and so forth. But as a country, also there is a number of opportunities for people to come in. We are now engaging massive, as I said earlier, the target is to increase productivity by 10% when you reach 2030. To reach that, we need inputs. One of them is fertilizer. Only 10% of fertilizer in this country is manufactured inside. 90% is imported. That is an opportunity. So we're just calling for opportunities in fertilizers and other agriculture sector value chains for the people to crowd in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Edson. Same question, what are these opportunities for multi-stakeholder collaboration and probably even investment?
Okay, thank you very much. I think my colleague has touched on some of the key areas of multi-stakeholder involvement because as we know, the food system is a complex, complex area. You're talking about environment, about agriculture, about the economics. So we need to have a systemic approach where you bring in all the key stakeholders, whether it's policy from the government side, private sector is critical. Government alone cannot do it. The researchers, my sister here, they are looking at specific, varieties of beans that address specific aspects. They have to be involved, and the youth, need to be at the center of this discussion. So that's why, I'm glad, in these kinds of session, that the youth are here. We're hearing their voice. Long ago, you used to have one youth on the platform, and that was sufficient. But now, they were listening to the youth and addressing, their problem, their issues. So all of these, need to be involved. The farmers associations have to come into the equation, and development partners. And specifically on that aspect of, many people have been mentioning, ADBs here, they have the big money, the money bags. But to be frank with you, the resources that are needed, we're not anywhere close to that. I'll give you one example. For example, in Kenya, we have an Enable Youth project, which is a $30 million project. About 50% of that is for the incubation, working with accelerators, etc. But then 50% of that, about 15 million, is now for access to finance for the youth who have gone through the incubation, process. Now, let's break it down. When you hear 15 million, it sounds like a lot of money. You can do a lot. But if you say 15 million, you want to finance just 1,000 youth, that would be $15,000 for a youth. So imagine that is 15,000, you cannot really start a business, We'll ask our colleagues here, in the seed potatoes or, from Zimbabwe. $15,000 is really is minimal. So the development partners, the government, we cannot do this by ourselves. This is where now we need to leverage on the private sector. I think it is key, whether we come in with some instruments such as credits, guarantees, that will support now the local private sector, local banks, local financial institutions to also put their money and make money as well. So we can actually stimulate the financial, environment within that particular country. So that was just one example on the financing side as well.
Thank you for those highlights. And Aileen, both the Deputy PS and Edson have spoken about research, and I know the Tanzania government has prioritized that a lot. As a researcher, do you have enough money? Anyway, let's speak to the opportunities for research.
Yeah. So first, I like the fact we're seeing opportunities and not challenges, because I say the opportunities in everything. So maybe I shift a little bit from BINS and come to the Gender Impact Platform. So basically, in the CG, we used to talk about gender equality. But now if you go to the website, you would see we've added youths, because we realize and we acknowledge that youth, it's a very important group. Secondly, as well, we have what we call the evidence model. And the interesting thing we're focusing on this year is really gathering data on youth across the value chain. I did a systematic review on youth and pastoralists. And it was important that what I realized, there was not a lot of information out there. It was more on what policies exist, what are some of the things we should do. So it was more prescriptive of what people think the young people, let's say, for example, in the pastoralist system need, and not so much data on what the youths are saying they really need in that system. So I think evidence is really important, because we want to be targeted. We want to address an existing problem and not a problem we think exists. So evidence is important. I think another thing is information. How do we get information to the young people that need that information? So sometimes you have a discussion and someone tells you, oh, you're looking for finance. Actually, you can get it from this person. But the young people that are involved in that business don't know that there's a person they can talk to, don't know there's an institution they can talk to, and sometimes whether the process is to go through to be able to access that. So how do we make that information accessible? There's a lot of talk about digitalization. I love digitalization. I mean, yeah, I have my phone. I don't have a notebook or a pen, but also then I have my sisters and brothers in the rural area that don't have these type of phones. How do we get information to them? So I think it's a combination of the different delivery or dissemination methods that we should think of. So as much as we go the digitalization way, which is good, but also we have to think about what about those that are not yet digitalized? How do we get that information to them as well? I think that's really, really, really important. And the last thing I would love to say as well is, when we talk about finance, for example, what are the different financial opportunities that are there? There's a lot of discussion just about how do we get the loans, but I know there's equity, I know there's angel funding. So how do we access some of that other money? If I'm a young farmer and I want that opportunity, how is it possible to get that? If I have to move from growing food and going to organic food, she talked about diets. Or if I need to move from just going beans to focusing on bio-fed beans, what are the opportunities there for me? So I think it's important as we talk about just value chains and we throw in nutrition and health, it's good to have a lot more information on why should I move there, but also, at the end of the day, how much do I make from that? Because we cannot take out the money factor. So I grew up in a household where my mom is an agricultural engineer. My father is an agricultural engineer. My pet projects was growing food. I managed my father's palm plantation, but I never became a farmer. Because the expectation was, Eileen, agriculture is good, but agriculture makes sense when there's money in it. You grow food to eat, but also to sell and do other things. So I think it boils down to one thing. We would have youths joining. I am ready to leave my CG job and become an agriculturalist if I get money, hopefully much better than what I'm getting, which is what I'm thinking. Why? Sorry, I'm thinking of moving to Tanzania because I'm not a billionaire in the CG system. And what if I have to be a billionaire as a farmer? I tell you, like, I think that His Excellency said, we're looking for role models. You just need someone to see, to know that person can do it. And if he or she can do it, then I can do it. But if we don't find the role models, if the role models are older than us, so let me go a little bit further. If they're older than us, they are not an inspiration for us. If I see people sitting here that are 20 years older than me, do you know what we discuss? We say in 20 years we would be like them, which meaning by then we are no longer youths. So we need somebody that looks like us, somebody that struggles like us, sitting and telling us it is possible. And then we would go the extra mile of what do we need to do. But if the people we see here do not look like us, do not also even have a color, I know we don't throw the race cards in this event, but in this case it's also important, then the feeling we have is I might have to go to Germany to make it. I might have to be 20 years, to make it. Agriculture maybe is not for me. So I would stop there. Thank you so much, Vivian. I see you're moving already on stage.
Yes, not to say that you're boring, but you are hammering all the right points. So thank you so much. I think I want to open it up for discussion. Can we take at least 2 questions? Okay, let's see. How many are we? We are 6, 7. How many do we take? Now you have to help me here. I take all of them. Are you sure? We have one more speaker who has been waiting for so long, but she's getting all the right points, I suppose. So can we see on this side? Okay, 1, 2. How many hands did we have? Okay, we have Your Excellency, Benito here. But I'll have to distribute. Can we agree that it's only one question, each of you, just one? Okay. So Your Excellency will go first because protocol demands that he starts us off. After his question, we'll take more.
Thank you very much. I would really like to congratulate all the presenters. Wonderful. Very interesting. If I was marking, I would have given A+. Moderator, excellent. Now I think the audience is left. I would like, if you don't mind, I would like to identify gaps within the opportunities, if you don't mind. You have mentioned opportunities, but gaps within the opportunities themselves. First of all, number one, we are very lucky to have a president like Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, because she has already shown us by example. Our Minister of Agriculture has got the youngest, from the minister all the way downwards. Gerald Mweli, yourself, you are much younger than me. So this is a very good example. I think it's the minister, Mavunde just left, right? Mavunde was deputy minister, and now he's been given another ministry. But these are the youth, because I come from CCM youth wing. So this is the youth that we have. We are very lucky. Is the youngest. So this model that you are looking forward for, our ministry, and the president has proven it, is the live example. Have you met the minister? Tomorrow, I'm sure tomorrow you'll meet him. Make sure the deputy PS introduces you to our minister. Very young, very young. When I was leaving the youth party wing of CCM, he was entering. So very young, I really mean very young. And from top to bottom. So the gap there is, the youth is already there, political will is there, you mentioned budget, 10 hectares. You mentioned all this. But the public, do they know? Do these youth know that there are 10 hectares there, or 10 acres? Sijui kama mnanielewa swali langu. Do they know? How do we get to them? There is a gap. You are already all the youth. You are our role models ready in the Ministry of Agriculture. Another youth is Ulega. Ulega is much younger than me. In the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. Awesu, much younger, Minister of Water. So all these components is with a lot of youth and vibrancy. And you are our role models. When you send them message, they answer you with the social media very fast. Now, how do we get this information to the youth? I think there is a gap there. Because when you look at youth, most of the time, unaona wanafanya hivi siku hizi, wanainama mara nyingi kwenye social media. But you don't see valuable component kwenye masuala ya in agriculture, in fisheries, in livestock, in all these opportunities you have mentioned. I think we are the only country in the world who are giving 10 acres. The rest is 1. Pakistan is not there. India is less than 1. Italy itself is less than 3 to the youth. Italy itself. Because I visited one of the region called Puglia. They have a youth program there for agriculture. So there is a gap of this information. This is a very valuable information to the audience. But second gap is, when I look around here in this room, I don't see the key players of agriculture in the country. You mentioned about PPP. PPP involves a lot of engagement. We have political will, the government is there, but I don't see a lot of these key players. I see them when there's a youth forum in Italy, they come. I see them when there is a fisheries forum, Lake Victoria, Lake Tanganyika, Dagaa program. I see them in Italy. But here, even in this book, I was going, where's that book? My book, it was there, here. I don't see here. Even in my book here, I don't see them. So I think there is a gap. Another gap which I wanted, Madam, if you become the citizen of this country, I think you have a lot of theory to implement it in practicality. Financing, African Development Bank. You deal most of the time with the government, with the Ministry of Finance. There you are signatories. I understand the structure a bit. I saw Mr. Donald Kaberuka. He will be part. You are retired president. But one thing I think when you are working with the government, try to go down into stakeholder ministry. Sit with them and identify. I think there is a gap there, because this then will go straight. And my last point, final point. When we have these party wings, these CCM, UV, CCM. There is Bavicha, I don't know, Bavucha. They're talking about DP World when they've not even been on a boat. They're talking about DP World. Hata bandarini hawajawahi kufika, wanaongelea DP World. Mimi napanda boti kila siku, nakwenda Zanzibar narudi. I think you need to engage because they have a very good base of youth. Ningetegemea mwenyekiti wa umoja vijana UVCCM should be here, makamu mwenyekiti, katibu mkuu. They have this youth, big population of youth that they can act as your ambassadors or your agents to disseminate this information, to create this awareness, to create this knowledge, to create this education in all aspects of youth in agri-food systems. Because opportunities are there, but they are not communicated or reaching to the last mile. Asante sana.
Asante sana, Your Excellency. I'm trying to wonder what is Your Excellency in Swahili. Anyway, Mheshimiwa. Oh, asante. So I went off stage and I was consulting with my seniors, so I'll just take 2 more, kindly. So I'll take your question, yes, and then 1 more on the other side. Because we have to vacate the room because of the next session. So kindly. The speakers will be here. You can stay on and engage with them.
Thank you so much.
Utasimama, you'll stand so we can see you.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. If the ambassador was able to stand, I can do it.
Certainly.
All right. So thank you so much, our panelists, for the wonderful discussions and the everything that you have addressed. My concern mainly was coming in on the marketing section of business now, because in all considerations, when we are talking about farmers and in the agri space, we are also doing it for the profits for the money. And somebody who's majoring in agribusiness management, we talk more about that. So I wanted to hear more, maybe from the government, as how the farmers' positioning is when it comes to the market, when it comes to the markets here in Tanzania. Of course, I am based in Malawi, so maybe it might be a little bit more different. So I would like to understand more how the farmers are actually positioned when it comes to marketing. Because most of the times as farmers, we face problems when it comes, back in Malawi, we don't really have the value chain addition when it comes to local farmers, because we're still struggling with small scale and we cannot sustain very expensive processing plants. So we usually have this problem where the market doesn't really favor us when it comes to the pricing, when it comes to our involvement, and also our produce sometimes go to waste, even though we are encouraged to do it on a large scale as horticultural and animal products. But then our produce go to waste. So I want to understand how the marketing position is for farmers here in Tanzania and how you deal with their challenges when it comes to marketing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take the final question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Hans Njobelo from 360 Connect, a consulting company based in Mbeya, the Southern Islands of Tanzania. So my question will be general. I think it goes to all of you on the panel. And I would really love to know, like practically, what really is happening on the ground to see that youth are really the table. Youth are really at the center of designing all these good initiatives that you've been speaking about. Because I mean, I hear very good stuff from AFDB, from the government, and Madam Chanji. But the question's still the same. Are we only sitting down and planning all these good initiatives on the perspective of, you know, the experts that we have, or we are engaging the youth to become the center of designing, co-creating, and making sure that whatever we are coming with on the table has a youth perspective in it. I think it's important to do that because for so many years we've been talking about youth and how they should be engaged, but where are we getting these ideas? Are the youth the one driving the conversation? Do we give them enough space to be on the table and tell us or advise us on how to go about and what are the real issues? That is my concern on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll come back to our speakers, and I'd urge them, as you give your responses, you will combine it with your closing statement. Okay? All right.
Maybe I should just start with a question from Ambassador. First of all, of course, 100% we need to step up our awareness campaigns. The application for enrollment to the BBT program, the first phase, we just took only 812 youth, but the application was 20,000 plus youth. That shows there is an amount of awareness on the existence of this program. That's, of course, we have a lot of application. But that is not enough. I think we need also to do more. But the second, when we now just reach a phase of productivity, where now those youth can start getting money, that will also be another way of creating awareness, where the people, they can just see it and believe in it. So that will be also the second stage where we can showcase what is happening, where you can just entice more youth to get in. The second thing is about the market issues. That is true, it's a problem. We have a number of brokers, where of course in most cases they exploit farmers. But what has been done in Tanzania, first of all, we are now building market centers, where we also provide them with cold chain facilities. That is to ensure you give more shelf lives of their, especially horticultures, so they can bargain well, knowing that, of course, my goods are not going to be perishable very soon. So that's the way, of course, we are doing it. But also, there are some crops we are providing specific price limit to ensure, of course, we protect farmers. And that is happening just Sesame this year. They've just gained a lot of money because we've just set aside the price limit. When it comes to, are we engaging youth in designing? Yes, even in BBT program. Before the implementation of this program, the designing of this program, it had involved a number of youth where, of course, this is their byproduct. This is what the product they want, now we are going to implement. But the designing of this product, definitely, to a large extent, it has an involvement of a number of youth. To conclude, as said by an ambassador, we have a number of policies. But now is not a time to talk the talk, but to walk the talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Edson.
Thank you. Just to respond to a couple of questions. On the last one, are we really engaging the youth? As a bank, as we were designing the Enable Youth program, we had a number of consultations in different countries, and we had youth actually, participating in many of those. And together with the Agri pitch competition, over the past 3 or 4 of them, we also had a youth agripreneur forum as well. So, focusing on youth topics, they'll take part, and we get a lot of feedback from that. So for sure, we're engaging the youth, quite a lot. But I agree that, we can still do more. We can still do more to listen to the youth, to have them, at the center. And having said that, as a bank, a continental bank, youth need to be at the center of all our programs, not only in agriculture, whether it's education, whether it is health, in all aspects. If you look at the population pyramid of Africa, it's very wide at the bottom, and statistics show that even for the next 20 years, it will continue growing wider at the bottom. So that segment, of the population is still growing. As compared to the other countries, if you look at Europe, it's inverted, You go to Germany, the median age is maybe, I think, 45 or so, and it's increasing. So in Africa, whatever we do, youth need to be at the center. And then one more point that I'd like to add is that why the agriculture sector for youth, employment, etc. I believe that the agriculture sector has a lot of opportunities and a lot of potential. When we come to look at the type of food, the imports on the continent, the statistics, it's too much. The amount of trade within the continent, they say, I think, intra-African trade is only about 3% of global world trade. So with the AFCTA, there's a lot of potential really to, to provide, the goods, but also for the youth to be able to move around the continent, and to settle anywhere you'd like to do. But having said that, I think it's important the issue of value addition to whatever you produce. That is critical. I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, I actually tried agriculture. I've been in the agriculture sector for a long time, but I never really soiled my hands. I got about 2-3 acres. I put in drip irrigation. I put in tanks, and it is a lot of work. So this word that we use, sexy and all that, it really is not. It's hard work, and we need to be really, I think, practical. With the youth that. Once you're coming in, you're going to spend money. It's expensive. I'll give you an example. Just buying water for that irrigation, it cost me so much money. I said, how do, because we're using municipal water, it's very expensive. It comes maybe 2 or 3 times a week. That's not enough. If you have, if you have vegetables under drip irrigation, you'll have to truck in water. You know how much that costs, In Kenya, that's about a truck of 10,000 liters, It's about maybe $70 or so. That's just one example. So I think we need to be also very honest with the youth that it is hard work, that it is costing. This even 2-3 acres with $15,000 we're talking about, that's not enough. So we need to be, I think, very honest with the youth that we're working with, that it is hard work, and you have to be in it for the long term. You won't be able to run your farm from the city. That is it's impossible, unless you have a farm manager that you're paying a lot of money who knows what he's doing. So that, I think, is a key message. And also the issue of value addition. Don't have your crop that, you have to cut it today, harvest it today, and take it to the supermarket by tomorrow. Because you go to the supermarket, they say, no, this is not the size we want. So you're stuck with it. If you don't have any other addition to make it, process it into another form that can actually last long, and then you can market it when you want to, then you are, you're in big trouble. So those, I think, we need to be practical. Having said that, one more point is that the use of technologies. That, I think, is a big game changer. Precision agriculture is making a huge difference, reducing the costs and reducing the risks. Nowadays, you've talked about, I think colleagues talked about using drones to be able to see what kind of diseases are on your farm. Being able to spray your farm, specific areas, you reduce your costs so much and your risks. So there are opportunities that are there, but you have to be ready to invest your time, invest your money, and be in it for the long term. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
Thank you. Aileen?
Yeah, so I'll try not to repeat what has already been said. I think the first thing is having a document that focuses on youth. What do we really want to do with youths, and what do youths want? And that's why I go a little bit back to the Gender Impact Platform that has one of its key impact areas focusing on youth. Second is not just bringing any youth to the table, but we have to be targeted and we have to be intentional. We have a whole value chain. If someone is interested in value addition, how do you get that youth to the table to discuss what is needed, what is relevant, and how that can be done? If you have a youth, for example, that's interested in production, how do you get that youth to the table to have a discussion when production is happening? In the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance, what we did was to develop these treasures. These were actually young people that were already involved in designing different agricultural products. And the treasure was the idea of this is something where we see potentials. And interestingly, in Tanzania, it worked. And one of the reasons was not just the determination, the training that they got, as well as the finance that was there, but also one of the important elements was the cost of the material to build the treasure. So what we realized was cost for material to build the treasure was cheaper in Tanzania, and overall, when you have the treasure, it's cheaper compared to Burundi. In Burundi, we had the treasures developed, but the cost of production was so high that even when we had these portable treasures, the young people themselves said this was too expensive for them to buy to be able to make, income. Because also you think when you're investing, how long does it take for you to start making gains? You don't want to do that when you're old. You also want to start enjoying the money while you're still young. So I think there are all these other elements. And what's important is bringing the right people to the table for that discussion, but also making sure they have a voice, listen to what they're saying, and then basically what we end up having is co-developed and is co-designed. Thanks.
Thank you, Aileen. If I hear you well, it is about bringing the right people to the table, and we've heard from this conversation that the youth are the table. And I think I mentioned that they are also the meal. Anyway, we are not eating them anyway. Mr. Mpisi, thank you for so much. You have highlighted on value addition, you've highlighted on precision agriculture. You shared a lot about the bank's programs, and we do appreciate the insights that came in. Deputy PS, Mr. Omar, thank you again for joining us. We really want to walk the talk, and we want to ensure that the youth are actually leaders in agri-food system transformations. So Mr. Omar, Mr. Mpisi, and Dr. Nchanji, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. And to the audience, thank you for your active participation. Thank you so much. A round of applause. Wow, a whole morning, but I think it was a very engaging and useful session to have, and especially as we are just getting started with the AGRF. So now we want to close this off, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you Dr. Nicolene Dehan, who is the director of the CGIAR Gender Impact Platform. She's also a senior researcher. So Dr. Dehan is the director of the CGIAR Gender Impact Platform. She's also a senior researcher with more than 15 years of expertise in gender, rural livelihoods, agriculture, and natural resource management. As director of the Gender Impact Platform, she brings her wealth of experience to bear on designing and leveraging solutions for women and youth in agriculture, with the aim of making equality and inclusion drivers of food systems transformation. She leads the platform team and champions the wider community of CGIAR gender researchers, pursuing the platform's mandate to guide and strengthen CG research to ensure its meaningful and lasting contributions to global targets for gender equality, youth, and social inclusion. She also conceptualized and led the development of the Gender Equality Research Initiative, HER+. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nicolene, welcome.
Thank you. First of all, thank everyone for sticking it out. But it also shows how important it is that we had this session. And so I also wanted to thank FAO, Agri, and SACO to do this session with us. We really appreciate it. I'm not going to spend much time to recap everything, because I think everybody has heard quite a few things. But I did want to highlight a few things and also put out a few challenges out there. So one thing I wanted to highlight is whatever we talk about youth, it needs to be a business. I mean, I keep on hearing that. You know, we can make it sexy, whatnot more, but it needs to be a business. People need to get a returns. And I think that's where I'm going to challenge you a little bit, because I think we need to start fixing the system. And I say that because in gender, which I've worked on a lot, we always talk about how we have to fix the women, we have to give them more education, we have to give them more access, blah, 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 blah. But half of it is that the system is broken. It's not the system that's helping women. And I think with youth, you have the same thing. Agriculture is broken at some level. And we need to fix that. Instead of spending a lot of energy in trying to understand how to support certain farmers, we need to just start fixing the system. So that's my big, big challenge to everybody in this room. Because I don't want us to go down the route that we've done with gender, where we spent years trying to fix women and realized that it was the whole system that we needed to fix. So that's one. So we need better understanding. I think that's one of the big things as well. What we learned in the gender space was that we need better data. And I think that's again here, we need better data, we need better understanding. And I go back a little bit to what Eileen has also said, we need better theoretical understanding. It shouldn't just be your opinion or my opinion, it needs to be based in theory, it needs to be based in research, what we do as we move forward, if we want to change it in a big way. So that it's not just your opinion or my opinion, it's actually how do we move forward so that we make it sustainable. Another point is, youth is not a homogeneous group. That's another thing we learned. So start from the beginning understanding they're different youth. And one of the big ones that wasn't really mentioned very often here is that, and I do this often with a lot of groups, is close your eyes and think of a youth. So if you close your eyes right now, think of a youth. What are you thinking of? In most cases, it'll be a young man. But we've got a lot of young women out there who have different challenges as well than men, to be honest. In agriculture, we have the huge issue of, for instance, child brides. That is a big problem in agriculture. So we need to start thinking and understanding those as well. So I think that's quite important as well. They all have different aspirations, so let's work with them, please. things I heard that I think will make a difference if we move forward. And I really look forward, especially to the people in this room and whoever was in the room before, what unconventional approaches are we going to use that is going to change the conversation? Because we cannot be here 10 years from now still saying we need youth at the table, et cetera, et cetera. We can't. We do not have the time. So please, be unconventional in what you do in the future. Be proud also of what you do, because agriculture is an amazing area. I come from a long line of farmers in my own background. I became a researcher in farming because my uncle took the farm. My father didn't get the farm, so he also became a researcher. But it's still in an amazing area, so be proud as well of agriculture. Thanks again. Appreciate everybody spending the morning. I think it's amazing that we have you here and that we are beginning to get much more and more discussions around youth. What is youth? How does it work forward? And as was pointed out by Eileen, we hope to have a position paper out on youth to talk more about that theoretical behind youth. Thanks again.
Thank you. So this is where we bring it to the close. I did say that I have a present for someone who has stayed to the end. So because there's many of you, this is the present. It's very hot, but it's a flask. It will either keep it hot or cold, depending on how you want it. So as we bring it to the close, I want one of you in the audience. We have a suggestion for a prize. Okay. 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 So how do we start? 18. 35 to 30. 35 to 30. Oh. Okay. No, that was... Okay, 30 to 25. Oh, no. 25 to 30. We have... Okay, below 25. So, there are two. Okay. I only have one. Oh, no. 23. And? Months. Okay, come.
That was a close call.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Say something?
Say something. You want to say something?
Yeah.
You take away what you want.
Thank you. It's shikamo in Swahili for everyone. My name is Fanlek John. I am the founder of Vaten Enterprise. We are creating a remote controllable irrigation system to actually do climate smart agriculture. So we want to do irrigation with the smartphones, not basically going to distract the river banks and take the water. Like, people are using water in a bad way, so we want to improve irrigations to the farmers. So it's a data-driven agriculture system. I'm the farmer, but not producing anything. I create the system. That's it.
So as we can see, Fanlek is walking the talk, as we said, or what? Or innovating.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Let me shake your hand. Okay. Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining us for the rest of the morning. And now we are in the afternoon. I hope that this event has been a wonderful scene setter for you, even as we start off the official discussions for the Africa Food Systems Summit. And I just want to thank you all for joining us again. I've been your moderator, Vivian Atakos. I work on engagement and policy for the CGIAR, gender impact platform. Thank you very much. The speakers, all of you, will take a group photo. But maybe later we can take with everyone. Yes. So we'll take the speakers and then the rest of us can come on stage and we take everyone.